Thank you. I'm sorry. When I agreed to do this, I had this idea I was going to do this thing called 10 useful things we know about ourselves. And the first one was people are bad at math and statistics. And the second one was children are annoying and difficult. And then the third one was, oh, I don't have 10 because I'm bad at math. So I abandoned that. And then I went into a full-on panic, as Mike can attest to. And then I just decided, I'm working on this book that I've been working on for years, and I'm finally taking the next 2 years, I'm like pretending I'm in graduate school or something, and I'm writing it, and I thought I would read from the first chapter of it. Just 10 minutes, very quick. Okay. Standing in line at the post office, carrying a large, heavy box and another smaller package, I took the opportunity to contemplate my sins. The first was on my Pollyannish insistence on carrying the box to begin with. The second was my compulsion to examine my sins, which I suspected was really just an excuse to compliment myself, thereby adding another sin on top of the original one. Wait, now let's get this straight. Sin number 1, carrying the box, exerting physical effort for no real reason. Sin number 2, categorizing this as a sin, which means a violation of law set down by a supernatural deity, and as an atheist, this is surely a sin. Sin number 3, reflecting on this too intensely and exaggerating my humility. Sin number 4, later, or more specifically, now, this very moment, me typing, writing about it, narcissism, navel-gazing, hubris, and there I go again, ruminating in circles. My mind boggles. I want to try to untangle. But let us start with the first transgression. Why did I insist on carrying this heavy box? There were 5 people in front of me and 2 clerks, each tending carefully to 2 more customers. I knew it would take some time for me to make my way towards the front of the line. If I put my box on the floor, I would have to kick or at least nudge it forward with my foot. And that seemed lazy, not to mention unkind to the box. Should I hold it or put it on the floor? I don't approve of people for whom kicking their boxes forward on the floor of the post office is acceptable. In Los Angeles, where I used to live, I patronized a post office that had a long table next to the area where the line formed. You could put your box on it and move it along. That seemed so much more civilized than here, which is odd because almost everything else about living here is much easier and streamlined and organized. Anyway, I don't live in Los Angeles anymore. 2 years ago, I moved to Wilmette, a small town in Illinois. It's actually just outside of Chicago, and many residents in our city work downtown. But this township, I will avoid the word suburb, has its own particular character and feels somewhat self-contained. There's a quaint late 19th century city center and an elegant brick metro station. It has this plain, stalwart post office. Oh, those 2 words, plain, stalwart. That's how I like to think of myself, even though my mother would shudder at me describing myself that way. Oh dear, a memory from 3 years ago. No one your age has gray hair, my mother screeched while swimming the breaststroke menacingly towards me. We were in my small backyard pool in Los Angeles, but I'm almost 48, I said, treading water. My mother said, what I mean is I can't have a daughter with gray hair. But you do, I replied. So I guess you can. See, you can do it. There is my house, the yellow one, right across the street. Well, specifically, I live across the street from the parking lot to the post office, which is abutted to another parking lot for the town's library. It was one of the big reasons I bought this house, these twin little ladies, squat, middle-aged, spare and sturdy, my post office, my library, there to greet me each morning when I go out to get the paper. Here we are again, they say in unison. The library will always be here for you. The post office, civilization. The library, we may be plain, but we're 2 of the best things about civilization, and we can go at any moment. The post office, the mail, the library, the books. Which brings me to the book rate, surely the best of all possible discounts. The book rate is now called the media rate, and it includes DVDs and CDs. In my big box, I have DVDs that I'm sending off to Amazon to sell. I still am, I suppose, a performer, and several years ago I did this one-person show called Letting Go of God. I ended up filming it, and now I distribute the DVDs through Amazon. They're selling well, and it means that I stand here in this line every week or 2 with the big box. I did not put my box down, but instead shifted the weight from my right foot to my left and took a deep breath. In my hands, I carried my art. Or this is what I like to tell myself, maybe to make myself feel better and to understand why I was doing what I was doing. I've learned that mostly people do things and then justify them later, cleverly time-shifting the events so as to make them seem as if we contemplated our actions before we took them, when in fact, the haphazard soup of our DNA and our experiences and our subconscious have all decided exactly what we were going to do long before our lumbering grandpappy of consciousness woke up and went through the charade of deliberating. I like packing the boxes. I like touching the DVDs. I like knowing how many I've sold. I like doing it all myself. I guess I have the penitent's attraction to mindless drudgery. A dark-haired woman, having finished her postal transaction, came up to me. "You're Julia Sweeney," she said. "Yes," I said. I was uncomfortable because the other people in line turned and looked at me questioningly. I'm in that weird zone of just a little bit famous, which mostly makes people think I'm their cousin's friend, or that woman in the other office down the hall's ride share. Mostly people do not remember me for being on Saturday Night Live 20 years ago. "Oh my God," the woman said, the volume on her voice turned way up. "Yes," I whispered back at her in an attempt to suggest she lower her voice. "You're the atheist writer," she belted, her smile broadening to encompass half her face. Oh, there is so much in that word atheist. I really hate that word. Not for what it means. I mean, I own it. I am it. I am without a thee. But oh, that word atheist. All the baggage so heavy and dark and troublesome. I may have given up on my faith, but I cannot change what happens to me biologically, internally, really physically when I hear that word associated with myself. I can just feel all my 5 great Chicago aunts, most of whom I didn't even know but heard about. They were really mythological figures themselves. I can feel them all turn in their graves over at Calvary Cemetery, which is only a mile or so from where I am standing. As this woman said that word to me, I felt like I was floating out of my body and looking down in astonishment at myself. That I, the one who always took it so seriously, who loved being a Catholic, who always loved mostly the culture of Catholicism, and who really loved God too. Jesus, you could call me the good girl in so many ways, the responsible older sister, the one who cleared the table after dinner without being asked, all because I felt someone was approving and keeping track, an all-knowing God, just like I felt that about carrying this box, which at this very moment suddenly seems so very heavy and weirdly comforting too, because it was a barrier between me and this woman. The box was protecting me. And then there was what was in the box, my DVDs, my wee little show, my film, which could be had by anyone who wanted it for under $20. In this box, the 150 or so DVDs, and yet this box of DVDs is what also defined me, and it's what this woman was inevitably referring to, and it was also the weight of it, the fact that I refused to set it down. It represented my Catholicism too, the part I can't excise, the Sisyphean rock that I'm always carrying up the hill, and to who? And that metaphor doesn't really work, because what I really wish is to let the rock go and just ramble down the hill, and then instead of going back down and getting the rock again, I wish I could just head out over the hill, see what's on the other side, and forget about that rock. And really, I guess that's what this book is, my attempt to let the Catholic burden go, and with it, even the atheism too, because I'm so sick of both of those words, Catholicism, atheism, to hell with them both. The woman said, "I've seen your show on Showtime." The film was playing on Showtime at that moment. "And I read your chapter in Beyond Belief about parenting with God, and we have so much in common." I looked at her skeptically. I didn't know if we really did. She went on, "I was also Catholic. My mother is Irish and my father is Italian, and I grew up in a very, very Catholic Chicago neighborhood, in a big family full of siblings who are all still Catholic. And I also lost my faith, and I also decided to adopt as a single mother. And I also have a daughter from China, just like you. And then I also got married much later. I got married a couple of years ago, just like you. And my daughter, well, she's at camp right now." Well, she made a very good case for us being very similar. "Well, my daughter is at camp too," I said. "In fact, I'm mailing the smaller package to her." I looked at her. Of course she was Italian and Irish. She has that lovely mashup of those two ethnicities. Her skin was pale, but her hair dark and thick. She had that great Italian nose, but Irish eyes. And then I noticed that the woman's eyes were not twinkling in that Irish way anymore. They'd become narrowed and they were a little colder. "Oh, my daughter is not at sleepaway camp," she said gravely. "Oh," I said. "I could never allow that," she said seriously. "I love my daughter way too much. She is my life. She is everything to me. I mean, I love my husband, of course, but it's not like how I feel about my daughter. I couldn't be away from her like that. I just couldn't." Now, how to respond? I felt like saying, I could because I really don't love my daughter all that much. That's where we must diverge. We're like in every way, but this one I don't really care about my kid. But clearly I was getting defensive in my head. I quelled my social impulse to profess the love I feel for my daughter, or even to placate the awkwardness by saying how much I missed her and how difficult it was for me to let her go to camp. And I channeled my Aunt Bonnie, my de facto therapist for many years, and I heard her coach me, "Just tell the truth." So I said, I am really enjoying my daughter being at camp for a month. I love it. I feel I need the break. I get 1 month off a year, and I feel rejuvenated afterwards and up to the other 11 months of constant mothering when camp is over. The woman smiled. "There are a lot of us, ignoring what I just said. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Well, there are a lot of us women raised Catholic, adopted Chinese daughters, and left the church. I know several. You can't believe the stories. Most of us originally wanted our children to have some kind of religion or to participate in the rituals of the Catholic Church that we mostly loved. I took my daughter when she was a baby to the church I grew up in, where most of my siblings now live and where they all go to church and where all their children attend school, and I asked the priest to baptize her, and the priest refused to do it. Can you believe that? He said, 'This is not a holy family. There is no Joseph in this family.'" "God," I said, "it's not even like you had sex out of wedlock." "Yes," she said, "that's what I said to him. Geez, it's not even like I got knocked up." Another woman I know had her daughter baptized, and when she got the baptismal certificate in the mail, instead of the name for father being blank, the priest had inserted his own name, which made this mother sick to her stomach. This priest was an old, creepy guy, and now here was this official document with his name on it as father to her child. When she called and asked him about it, he said he felt he had to put himself in as father because the child needed fatherly guidance. Anyway, that was it for her, too. She was out, never to return. I didn't know who I was irritated with more, the priest being described to me or this woman who couldn't tear herself from her child or her culture. And yet, that's me. That's me, too. That's me holding this box and just wondering why. Thank you.